Welcome to The Hunt Starts Here with Nathan and Justin, and today we really have a treat for you guys. We've got a true icon in the hunting industry, Mr. Strickland, joining us today. And man, I tell you, he's one of the pioneers of outdoor media. You know, I remember as a kid watching Hunting the Country with the family. So he really took what happened in the woods and brought it to our living rooms, especially in my younger days. And we get to talk about how Cuz, was a young man working in a bow shop and got an opportunity to work for Will Primos. And then today everybody knows him as the VP of Mossy Oak. So just a really good conversation.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that when you sat down with him, everything gets softer and quieter. He's so easy to talk to. Furthermore, in this episode, we talk about sort of the evolution of media in the hunting world, what's changed, what's stayed the same, maybe what's to come. We've talked about the lessons that he learned from drilling his own food plots and his learning experiences there, and how, as land stewards, if you will, how your preparation and patience and paying attention to your landscape can shape your hunting experience. So whether or not you grew up watching Cuz and the Mossy Oak crew on TV, I promise you don't want to miss this one. So this is The Hunt Starts Here.
All right, well, we're back to Stealth Pro Podcast. I'm Nathan.
Justin Henderson.
And today we've got somebody that doesn't need an introduction. We have Mr. Cuz Strickland here with us.
Well, I appreciate it. I bet you I got more questions for y'all than you got for me. I'm just telling you, turkey season is just, well, for us anyway, it's over with. And boy, when that light switch flips, everybody wants to talk about game keeping and planting and all that kind of stuff. But I'm here for you guys. We'll go in whatever direction you want to.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely, man. We're so glad to have you here. And like I said, no introduction needed, but if you don't mind, just tell people kind of how you got started and what you're doing nowadays.
Yeah. I answered a text a while ago, some guys being so grateful. Man, I listened to this and y'all have taught me so much. I said, look, I'm an old guy with interesting friends. That's my whole deal. And that's it. But, way back in the day, my dad was an Army guy, 20-year guy, and he didn't hunt hardly at all. He's a big fisherman. And I say all the time, he's the best fisherman I ever knew that didn't own a boat. But where we lived, we didn't need one. It was across the levee from, Natchez, and the Corps engineers were building the levee system, and they called them borrow pits, where they would dig to build the levee, and we called them bar pits. They'd fill up when the river got up, and it was just mile after mile after mile, and that's what we did when I was little. We fished from the bank and was good at it. But I loved to hunt, and he'd go like once a year, Homochitto National Forest. That's where I grew up. The Sandy Creek Wildlife Refuge, they call it now. But it just bit me. I loved it so much more, and not sure why. And I had a good friend in school that was a year or two older than me that had a driver's license. So me and him would go back and forth. And when I got my driver's license, it was over. That's all I wanted to do. Matter of fact, my senior year of high school, I missed 46 days. And the principal called me strict. He called me in his office and said, Strick, if you miss one more day, you're not graduating. And I was like, ooh. So I had to tighten up. But it just flew all over me. And, I did a lot of different stuff. The way I got into the business, I was working at a big warehouse, and that kind of went away. And I was always at the sporting goods store downtown, hanging out, rigging bows. I was good at that. And I immediately went to work for them when that job stopped. And rigging bows, selling guns, mountain scopes. And a buddy of mine bought the first camcorder that I ever saw. It came into Sears in Roebuck. And he bought it and brought it up there. He was going to film his kids or something. And he was one of my turkey hunting buddies, and I immediately took that out filming, just fascinated for some reason. And at the same time, I was buying calls to sell in the store from Will Primos, which the only thing he had back then was a true double mouth call. He was making them at his house. He wasn't full-time. And I seen him a couple of them VHS tapes and never thought that much because we were using his calls.
Right.
And he called me one day and said, you think you could film a turkey hunt with a professional camera? I said, I have no idea. I've never even seen one. And he literally Came to Natchez with a giant camera. It was really big. Bought it from WLBT.
Oh, wow.
Used TV. It was just gigantic. This big. Had a big cord that plugged into a recording deck with a tape this big, and it was overwhelming for me. But I figured it out enough, I said, I'll give it a shot. And we had a little trial there. And he would, if I filmed all day on the weekends, he'd pay me $10 or 6 cents a mile. Do the math on that. But anyway, I figured out how to lay the stuff down. And then next spring, I went to work for him, and we filmed The Truth, which ended up being a cult movie. Yeah. And that's all timing. Nobody knew. There was a couple of hunting videos out there. The Wentzels had put one out, but there wasn't any turkey stuff. And it kind of went nuts. And who knew? But anyway, he wanted me to move to Jackson, up there where Primos is, and couldn't do it. I had little kids and all that. And I said, I can't do it. I'm going to go back to work for the sporting goods store. And then him and Toxie got together, and he called Toxie and said, hey, you need to hire this guy. He's going to be a good one. And Toxie offered me a job selling, which didn't matter where you lived then. And I went to work for Mossy Oak in 87. So that's getting close to whatever, 40 years ago. Yeah, 40 years I've been there. Don't know how. But everybody sees it now and go, oh, man, you got it made. Well, wasn't quite like that. When we started, it was a struggle. It was nobody knew who it was. Me and Bob Dixon, God rest his soul, and Bill Sugg were selling it. Bill Sugg was helping Toxie make it, all cotton. And Bill Sugg had Mississippi. Bob Dixon had Alabama. Well, I had everything else as far as trying to sell it. And we used to have contests who could stay in the cheapest motel. And there wasn't any money. And I never lost that. I went, and I tell this story when I do them talks, and I was going through, if you ever been to South Florida to go turkey hunting, you drive through Yeehaw Junction, and this was almost 40 years ago. And I was driving down through there, and there was a sign out on the highway that said, rooms $10. And I went, whoa. And it was getting kind of late. I said, yeah, I'll win this month's Who Can Stay. I went in and pulled around, opened the door with the bell rung, like it was like Mayberry, RFD or something. Guy was back there with a newspaper, and he didn't even look up when I came in, and the bell shook. And I said, rooms $10. It's about 8 o'clock. And he pulled that paper down. He said, okay, $9. And I still have the receipt. I got a room for $9. But it was a struggle. Toxie didn't know that much about fabric or zippers or buttons, and it was quite the journey getting to where it is today. But anyway, that's how I ended up working for Mossy Oak. So.
Amazing. And now 39 years later, you can buy anything you want to in Bottomland camo.
Yeah. It's amazing. Bottomland's the first, his first pattern. He actually came out with two. It's Bottomland and Hill Country. Mm-hmm. Hill Country was basically Bottomland with a little more gray in it. And it kind of went away. I still have some. I still have my sample bag from 1987.
Wow.
2 of them in the packaging. Man. And I told my wife, I said, you need to put that up. If something happens to me, you can go with eBay and you can retire. They pay stupid money for that original stuff. But it's funny because it's like you said, Bottomland, you see it everywhere. And even the young kids, like I got 3 grandsons, and they ain't going out in the woods unless they're wearing Bottomland. And it's just been a accumulation of things that happened. Like when we were doing TV, Toxie did not want to be on there. He usually wasn't. I was filming.
Right.
It was never about us. It was about, the critters and the habitat. And that TV, ours was different. It really was. I'm still very proud of that. I produced all that TV forever. And, when we aired it, it was on TNN, the national network. Mm-hmm. Young people don't remember any of that. But TNN was the national network, and all I had was NASCAR, rodeo, country music, hunting and fishing. That was the whole network.
We should get back to that.
Yeah, what else you need? But
right.
And we aired and ran, in the first year, they made us come on Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock, which is a kiss of death.
Yeah.
And we were airing it like October, November. Where's everybody at Saturday morning there? I don't know. Anyway, the show did surprisingly well. And a year later or so, we were Sunday nights at 7, which is prime time. And that's what Toxie say. That's what put the second story on the office building. Funny story that I was saddled with producing all that TV, and the outdoor TV stuff is like it's called a time buy, and that's the only industry that has to do that. We would buy the time, which was wildly expensive, and then we also had to produce the show and sell the spots. The network had no skin in that game, and it was crazy. And but Toxie, he calls me in there, and since I had run a VHS camera from Sears, we need a TV show. And I was like, okay. And went over to Mississippi State. They have a great broadcast school over there, and this was years and years and years ago. But anyway, I found the broadcast school, met the dean, told him what I was doing, and they had a big window out there. Class was in session, a bunch of people, and I said, now, I want to edit this thing in West Point. Hunting was too big of a deal to let somebody else be in charge of the shots and all that. And I asked him, does anybody out here hunt? He said, that big boy does. And I waited around for him. His name was Stephen Davis. And one of the smartest people ever. Hired him on the spot while he was still in college. And he ordered all the stuff. Back then it was Avid gear. And the room was just gigantic. It looked like NASA to get it done. Now I can do it on my iPhone, but back then it was tape deck to tape deck with all these mixers and soundboards and monitors, and it was crazy. And he wired all that stuff, and we kicked it off on TNN. And that year we went to, when I knew this was turning into something, we aired the second year on prime time, and I went to the SHOT Show, Shooting, Hunting, Outdoor Trade, our biggest show. And the Browning booth, they had just signed us up as their official camo. And I walked into the SHOT Show, and their booth was right down the aisle from ours, which was gigantic, and it was just covered in mossy oak. And I just had to sit down for a minute and go, holy cow, what have we done? And it's just kind of been a runaway train since then.
Mind blowing from where you started to where it is.
Well, it was a lot of people worked on it. And the best advice I ever got is TNN went away. They sold a Spike network. They didn't want us. We didn't want to be on there. So we moved to ESPN. And back then, ESPN had a couple of hunting shows. So I had to, before they just signed us up, they liked the work. I had to go up to ESPN, Bristol, Connecticut, and have a meeting with and look, you talking about out of my lane, I was about as far there was guys in suits, and they, Berkeley Film School graduates, and we're all sitting around a table, and they're telling me what all you got to do, and you can't do this, and you got to do that. And I'm thinking, man, you ain't never, and I'm looking at them going, you guys don't know nothing about hunting. Well, they were looking at me going, this redneck don't know nothing about TV. Yeah. And we were both 100% correct. And I would argue, well, you can't do that if you're... And finally, the guy running the meeting, I still have his phone number somewhere. He just kind of pounded the table and said, cuz. He said, give me a reason to root for him. He's trying to tell me how to make TV. He said, your show comes on, or whoever's, and they're in a tree. And who picked the tree? Why are you there? And he started telling me about telling stories. And I went, because I love stories. And he said, look, a great story, great cinematography, or a character, he said, that'll never go out of style. Mm. And buddy, he was right. And that was 38 years ago. So we were big into storytelling. And I love that because there's, being from the Southeast, and there's great hunters everywhere. Don't get me wrong, they're everywhere. But I knew the whole time, whether I was doing a seminar or producing a TV show that I wasn't the best hunter in the room. I did a talk at the NWTF this year, 700 people in there, and I'm looking out there going, half these people know as much as I do. The other half probably know more. I'm going to entertain them because they got that other part figured out. And people love stories. And they don't necessarily need to be looked down on telling you how I do this and how I do that. There's plenty of people out there to do that, but certainly wasn't my style. And I watched the TV ratings went up, man. It just did great. It was the number one in that block forever. And we never changed the format. Our cameras got better, and quality got better. And but we told stories. I had at one point, and this is hard for me, even Toxie accuses me of embellishing things from time to time. But it's hard for me to comprehend this, but at one point we had 5 shows. 3 of them were running 52 weeks a year. We had a show on the Golf Channel called Second Season. It was all PGA guys. And it was so much work. But I would tell them, and I had young guys I would hire, and I called them field producers because that's where the money met the road. That's where, I mean, I had so much respect for them because we didn't have a host. When I sent them on a mission, they had to come back with a show. They didn't have some host saying, set your lights up over here. So I always hated the term cameraman. When I was sitting around, somebody would go, where's my cameraman? And I'm thinking, dude, that guy knows more about hunting than you'll ever know. But anyway, I would tell those field producers, if your hunter isn't a talker or kind of a character, I said, kind of focus on the guide who's taking y'all around. And if he's a, dull or whatever, I said, focus on the closest town. Go to that closest town and find out something interesting about that we can do some narration on. Tell that story. Mm-hmm. And It was very seldom about the deer. Hunting was kind of the backdrop. One thing I'm very proud of, the whole run of that, we never scored a deer on any of those episodes. Didn't care. Yeah. Somebody had asked me what it score, I'd say a perfect 10. Because I didn't like that whole thing. And that, of course, that's a whole nother podcast. But those kind of decisions, Toxie's same way, Bill Sugg, all in the same way, that kind of built a following. Plus, we've been doing it so long, we have the option now to go back to those vintage tapes, and young people love that stuff. I got a good read on that because I got grandsons from 14 to 20, whatever. And I always revert back to, I was watching my middle one on his phone. I said, who you watching? And he was watching a YouTube video. I said, who's that? Because the guy was older. And he said, that's so-and-so, Pop. He's the best one out there on sharpening knives and axes. I said, well, good. And I went to walk away, and he said, plus he ain't trying to sell me nothing. Mm. So I get insight on what the young people are looking at, because everybody on social media now. But wait, there's more. It's like Ginsu knives, at some point they're trying to sell you something.
Right.
And and we have a retail site and all that, but it's more about feel-good stuff.
Yeah. And
trying to figure out social media. I still do a lot of social media, Facebook. I have a TikTok. Don't tell nobody. But I try to reach all them young people I can, because if I can get them to listen to the podcast or look at a post or something like that, I feel like you kind of bring them along and show them this is how we do it. This is how we have respect for the game and the habitat and the people that was way before us. Mm-hmm. And that's why I do social media. Is like, maybe they'll get an idea of how we do anyway. So.
Right.
Sharing your story.
Yeah. It's a fun thing to do. And, the social media is crazy. But Toxie's has twins. He's got 3 kids, but his twins, Daniel and Neil, they kind of run all that stuff now, but they're younger and they get it. And I kept doing mine. I was like, because Toxie could see the handwriting on the wall. He's a marketing guy. He's like, hey, we're going to have to figure something out because the TV stuff's, nobody watches TV now. But anyway, I was like, I was catfishing with my oldest granddaughter. Avery, who's graduated from college now, working on her master's or whatever. But she was about 8 or 9, and we were catfishing, and she had just got her first phone, and boy, she was doing this. And I said, Avery, you spend too much time on that phone. And she said, Pop, if you're not on Instagram, you're not relevant. Now, she wasn't picking on me, but I was like, I went home, I told my wife that night, I said, I'm going to be relevant to my grandkids. And, older people come up to me now, I don't do all that. I ain't doing all, well, you ain't reaching anybody if you have some kind of message. And I've always been like a storyteller and stuff, and you can tell a good story on Facebook.
Sure.
You just got to put it out there. None of my stuff's monetized, so I don't do it for clicks and views and all that. When I see a really good story, I'm going to talk about it and throw it out there. And boy, in the comments will go wild, and there'll be a lot of views. And all that happened to me one time. And reading those comments, to me, helps me see where everybody's pulse is at. You can get comments back and kind of know where people's heads are. And, of course, you get the occasional knucklehead, which everybody gets that from time to time. But there's a routine for that, block, delete.
That's right.
I actually don't get much of that at all.
No.
It's pretty rare. So.
And talking about seeing stuff interesting, and chances are, if you think it's interesting, somebody else will too. And it's worth sharing at that point.
It is, and I kind of, and don't take this the wrong way, but I felt like God wanted me to do this to kind of keep those positive. Because here's the deal: I've always been like, Toxie used to call me Santa, because I would be like putting them hunts on. I'm going to the warehouse. I'm getting a box of clothes, and I'm giving this person make sure everybody's got it. And people appreciate that, but I've always been like, and people send me stuff all the time, and I end up giving it away. But it's like the more you give away, the more God hands you to give away, and it's a vicious cycle. And I've seen, and that's what, and I speak at all these churches and stuff all the time, and I don't quote scripture. I need to be way better at that, but I'm not. And I talk about divine intervention that I've witnessed out there that just changed people's lives. And even if it was just for a weekend. But I was like, that's what I need to be doing. So it's like my little podcast. I always tell people, hey, no big words, no bad words. Moms don't have to review it. And people are listening. And I think people are searching for that, and I could be wrong. I'm no biologist or anything else, but I had a kid, I think it was 2 years ago at the NWTF, and that was like, we were at a table, and it was Toxie and me and somebody else. People were in line to get you to sign stuff. And my wife, she was back there going, man, these people need to get out more. She don't get it. And I was like, hey, we're a big deal down here. Anyway, I see this kid. He's 10 rows. He's way down there, and he keeps working closer, little bitty fella, 8, 9, something like that. And he finally gets up there, and he's got something to sign, and I sign it. And he looks at me and said, Mr. Cuz, I love following you, and I listen to that podcast. I love it. And I'm like, really? Yes, sir. I said, what do you like about that podcast? He said, I like them hunting stories. I ain't got any. And I thought I was going to start crying. Met his mom, single mom. Anyway, I found out where he's from. I think he was from Missouri, and I went over to one of them call guy. I forgot which company it was. They were all around. So found the pro staff guy from that state, hooked him up, and they took him turkey hunting that spring, and he killed a turkey. But he found turkey hunting on YouTube by himself, and that's what he centered on. Yeah. Which is like, the best quote I ever heard was from Gene Winslow, and he's talking about hunting. He said, it's not a sport, it's an instinct, just like breathing and drinking water and all. And he's right. Everybody's got that instinct. Not everybody was lucky enough to be raised where they could do it when they were little. And that, to me, I take that as kind of a responsibility. There was some guy lit me up on a post I made after the NWTF. Some guy came on, I think it was probably TikTok, complaining about how packed it was And these two girl influencers had a long line. I couldn't get around it. And he was just livid about how many people were there and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't see a single turkey killer there. And I'm like, I saw Harold Knight and Dave Owens and Will. Really? So anyway, I made another post. And I was like, first off, there was plenty of turkey killers there. You don't know what you're talking about. I said, second, there was two girl influencers there, big Instagram, Macy Watkins and Maggie Williams, who were classy girls. Mm-hmm. My grandsons wanted to go to that thing just to meet them, which told me all I needed to know. They stood in that line and had their picture made. So that guy was bad wrong about that. And I closed by saying, look, not everybody gets to do this. If we can get them interested, first off, we're lucky to have somebody to hand this to. If they want in the club, let them in.
Welcome them.
Yep.
You know, if you think there's too many people parked at the turnaround at the WMA, going down to the next one. You know, it's all fluid, but without hunters and their dollars, none of this happens.
Exactly.
So feel a little responsibility for that, and very proud Mossy Oak's been right. I mean, they're the same way. They do the turkey stamp. We raise plenty of money for projects, and Toxie's always been one to put his money into resources and all that stuff. So all that was divine intervention to end up where we are, as far as I'm concerned. So
Yeah. Well, there's room for all of us.
That's right.
It doesn't matter if you're a true blue turkey killer that ain't never took a video or nothing, or an influencer. There's room for all of us.
Absolutely. And
some of the best turkey killers I know wouldn't want to be on a video camera.
I did a talk at the NWTF called There's Room for Everybody. And I was talking about people I had taken. You'd be the last person in the world to think they would. But I tell them all the time, look, I'll follow those people. I love anything about turkey hunting content, but you'll never know who the best turkey hunter in the United States is because he ain't talking.
That's right.
It's some dude driving a gravel truck or works at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that taught me how to kill turkeys, and I was hunting them very unsuccessfully, and I beat my head again. The guy that taught me, I'm talking about many years ago, how to kill turkeys, sold copy machines, had a white shirt and a tiny little clip-on black tie every day. I'm telling you, to this day, one of the most deadly turkey hunters ever. I went with this guy for a season. I'm like, wow. I would have never learned all that by myself. So you never know, check your ego at the door.
Right.
Listen. And if you want to make a difference, take somebody. It's very time consuming. And you hear people all the time, oh, I take kids, I do this. I'm like, here's my thought on that. And I've taken kids a lot, but if you want to make a difference, here's the problem. If you take that 10-year-old kid and his dad and mom won't do it and all that, and you get him just very excited about it, well, guess what? When you're done with him, he's done. Take his dad or somebody that's got a driver's license and get him fired up where he can take him after you're out of the picture. It's because, hunting, it ain't like golf. You want to get into golf, you can go to the country club and get a lesson.
Yep.
30 minutes for $30. You can't do that in hunting. You got to have a mentor.
Yeah.
And some people are, into that. Some people aren't. But I said, if you want to make a difference, teach somebody how to do it. It's and that's time consuming, and that's, one of the most epic things I've ever heard Toxie talk about is time, how valuable it is. No matter how much land you got or money or whatever, time is your most valuable resource. And it's hard to give up time, but that's how you train people. If your kids they're lucky because they're in y'all's household, they'll have that option. But a lot of them little kids don't.
Right. It's an investment for sure. You spend your time wisely and invest it where it's going to benefit not you, but whoever you're spending it with.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about food plots.
Look, I told you when I came in here, the minute turkey season's over, I made a post. I don't even know when it was. I don't even think turkey season was over. But anyway, my trail camera, and I don't have turkeys on my farm, but I still got clover out there. I'm the eternal optimist, so I'm planting clover. Anyway, my trail camera caught a snapshot of me spraying the clover because I do experiments and stuff. And I posted that picture of me with an ATV spraying that clover, putting clethodim or what, I don't even know all that. But anyway, I threw it out there. It went nuts. What kind of clover is it? What
It's time.
It's time.
Yep.
Soon as turkey season's over, that's all anybody wants to talk about. And that right there, I ain't going to say it's more fun than turkey hunting, but it's I probably spend more time thinking about that than I do turkey hunting, because I had good people around me, but I didn't know nothing about food plots or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I knew when we went somewhere and there was a food plot there, that's where I wanted to film, but I never thought about somebody breaking dirt or whatever. I was like, and when I got into it, man, it was both feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love talking about it.
Well, if anybody ever tells you they know everything about it, you need to run, because it's ever evolving.
Oh, it is. And, I probably wore you out. You contacted me, and I was like, and I follow some farmers on YouTube because I'm a closet farmer, and in a small way. And I will never forget and I was like, I'm gonna grow some corn. And the only reason I wanted to have corn on my farm is because you can go down there in December and squint and you feel like you're in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Because it ain't the same hunting down here.
Right.
But anyway, I did all the reading I could do, and I was like, okay. And I shouldn't even tell this. It's pretty embarrassing. But anyway, I figured out how to plant. I said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it right. It's just me. But I had a big, like a 10-acre spot. We call it the Dove Field. I said, I can do it there. Got me a soil sample and got whatever I needed from the co-op, put it in there, and I tilled it. And then the first corn I planted it with a drill and just closed the holes up. I had the 2 outside holes open in the middle one.
Mm-hmm.
And Tykes was like, it'll work. He said, corn's pretty hard. You don't beat yourself up. Anyway, I figured it out. Didn't get the rows just right because couldn't see good. But anyway, I got it good enough. And buddy, that stuff came up, and I'd go down there every week and just look at it and go, I actually planted that. I couldn't believe it. And then it turned brown, and it actually had ears and stuff on it. And I got to looking at it. This was later in the season, and all them ears were and I was like, and I've got plenty of deer around. I was like, they ain't eating that corn. I said, I did something stupid, and the deer ain't even eating the corn. And I went out there, to grab one. Well, it was hollow. Them deer just eat it. Mm-hmm. They ain't going to mash it down when every ear of corn was gone. I went, well, thank goodness. I thought I'd done grown.
Job well done.
Yeah. And I have never been proud or anything than I am growing that corn. But, then when you think you're pretty good at it, then you start hearing about you go from, man, I made it turn green, whether it was ryegrass or whatever, to all right, now I'm gonna do a blend. And then it's like, well, now it's all about the health of the soil. That's where my head's at right now, because I own my little farm. And I was like, all right, let me go down that rabbit hole. And that one gets deep.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
That one gets deep.
Yeah, yes. That's such a good point, too. From, if you're hunting a lease or some Weyerhaeuser land or something, you don't so much care about the health of the soil as you do, just getting something out there for the deer to come eat in November.
Something green.
Yeah, but when you get your own place, man, you become a steward and
making plenty of mistakes.
Yep.
I made one last year. Dr. Bronson Strickland, his crew came out there they wanted me to do some video with them. And I said, okay, y'all spend a day or half a day with me, and I'm picking their brain, just like I did y'all's. And he's like, there was a guy cutting hay off my place. Man, that's a waste right there. And he said, what you need to do is burn that. Pick out a big spot, burn it, and then disc it and get you some natural forbs and stuff coming back. Well, I'm not a big burning guy. My wife hates that. That's a whole nother story. We had one almost get out of control. Anyway, I sprayed it and killed the grass and disc it, and now it's just got some kind of grass in it. But it's like that was a mistake. Either I didn't disc it deep enough. It's a never-ending book. And you just, especially in Mississippi, down here I could go out there at my place and dig my heel in the ground, kick that dirt, and come back in a week, and there's five different things growing in there.
For sure.
It is complicated.
It is.
And you gotta figure out what you're doing and what works in the Ozarks or in Iowa ain't necessarily gonna work here.
Right.
And I'm not trying. That's why I wore y'all out so much when we first started talking. My wife said, "Man, them guys ain't gonna call you back. You need to quit asking so many questions." But that's the way you learn.
Yeah.
And now everybody's want to talk about drilling. And that's where my head's at. So
yeah, it's funny you mentioned. What works in Iowa doesn't work in here. Heck, what works in the Delta doesn't work an hour east in the Red Clay Hills.
Isn't that something?
It's so different. The main constant there is you can drill food anywhere.
It is, and there's everybody's got to look. The only thing I have found there's more experts in than food plots is maybe trapping. You want to get some arguments going, you can start talking about trapping. You can't do that. You can't. But I think a lot of people now, there's professional farmers that get it, and they've been doing it up there. There's different dirt up there in Minnesota and Iowa and all that. But there's so many people doing so many different things, and you get on YouTube, whatever, and so I can do that. Well, I tried that, and it didn't work down here. You got to have a certain temperature, and you got to have a certain moisture level, and you got to have, a dirt that'll accept a seed that's dropped into with a drill. But where I got on the let's drill it train, and it just was a drought, and I think it was, I don't know what year it was. We've had 2 really bad ones since I've been out there. I don't remember what years it was. But that second one, I had planted my plots, and I may tend to get a little early. And up there in the north, they're going to say, I was at the end of August. And up there, their stuff's beautiful by then. But anyway, I get a little later each year. Anyway, man, I had the prettiest ones ever. And it quit raining. And I was so determined. I went and bought, them big square things you see, the chemicals and stuff come in. Got a little cager. I bought 2 of them, cleaned them out, got me a pump, and I don't know how much water that was, 500 gallons or 600 or something like that. Had me a pump I could put, and I had 2 little ones. I said, I'm going to save these, and I was out there running that sprinkler, all this. And I made a picture about it, and some professor at Mississippi State sent me a text with the math of how much rain it would take in gallons to equal a half inch for like 2 hours. And it was like 26,000.
Astronomical amount.
And
There's a lot of them.
He said, I ain't trying to rain on your parade. I'm just letting you know. But I was out there with that, and I was like, so, Mother Nature's got a lot to do with it. Anyway, I gave up. And it was later, and I was like, and I knew how to hunt. There weren't any food plots in Sandy Creek Wildlife Refuge. I knew what a bottleneck or an acorn tree, I was fine. But them grandkids were littler back then, and they loved sitting on them food plots because you could show them deer. And I was pretty depressed about it. And I borrowed a drill from, and Ty said, man, try to drill. I said, well, it's way too late now. No, it ain't. And I went and borrowed a drill, and I didn't do anything. I just went out there and drilled it, every one of them. And I said, well, I just wasted all that money. And boy, by Thanksgiving, it was like I'd done that from the start on purpose.
Right.
And it was like, that second run was a whole lot easier than that first run.
Something to that.
Yeah, because I was, it's like, here's the deal. It's like I worked me out a system, that was working, and it was a lot of work. Whatever, I'd mow it. Then I got a disc, a good disc, 10-foot disc. Then I'd disc it, and I went and bought a tiller. And buddy, so here's the process: bush hog, disc it, till it. I mean, that's a lot of work for somebody that's got a full-time job. And but it was working. Man, I was making that grass grow, and I even threw a couple of mixes in there. And it's just like something. And I was like, "Don't tell me how to grow no food plot. I got it figured out."
Right.
It's like when I wrote a chapter in one of the books about the magic number in turkeys. And once a person's killed 3, they done. You can't teach them nothing because it's so hard.
Right.
And when I started in that year, I drilled them food plots late, didn't do anything. Now, was there a little fertilizer? Probably. And I'd worked the dirt earlier, but anyway, I just drilled it, and it sat there forever before it started raining. But I caught some good rains back to back, like a week apart and a week apart. And after Thanksgiving, it was just beautiful. And I'm like, I ain't turning no more dirt ever again, So what kind of freaks people out, me too, on drilling stuff is trying to calibrate it. Because you can go on YouTube, and I don't care what brand it is, if it's a drill, they start calibrating. I just have to turn it off. I'm just like, that is the most boring thing, and there's all kind of blends. So I'm gonna get y'all on my podcast, and every question I got's about, drilling and all that, because people are into that.
Yes.
And I learned my lesson the hard way because I didn't have any choice, but I hadn't disc and planted a food plot in a while, but I've been barring a drill.
Right.
And but it's like, that's the way to go.
It is.
For me, anyway. A lot less work, a lot less damage, in and out. And I've already figured out, I throw a little fertilizer down depending on what I'm going to plant. But I can plant corn in rows. I can do milo or whatever it is. And it's like, when you're drilling it in, and that's all you did, you kind of feel like you're a farmer looking back
A little
there.
bit.
Got your rows behind you and all
That's
straight.
it. I made me a homemade row marker, and out of a 2x4 and a piece of all thread rod. And in a clamp, I got a 2x4 with an all thread rod going down it, painted it fluorescent orange, and clamp it to my bucket. And I measured out 30 inches from the side, and I got one on each side, and I'll make a pass and turn around. So there, and it's just, man, I can make rows now. Matter of fact, the guy that farms, I have 30-something acres on my place in the back. I let the farmer just, because he'll plant soybeans one year and corn, and I don't charge him or nothing, and he's just a good guy. Anything you can do, in my opinion, to help a farmer.
Right.
Anyway, I got video, aerial stuff from my drone, and I made a post about my corn, and he pulls up there one day. I pull up there one day and go by the chicken coop, and there's 3 ears of corn laying here and 3 ears of corn laying there. And I'm like, I figured my wife had picked it or something, was going to give it to the chickens. Anyway, my phone's ringing, and it was the farmer. He said, "Cuz, this is Romy." I said, "Yeah." He said, "You see that corn on the right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I pulled it from down in the bottom. That corn on the left, I pulled out of your field. It's better than mine." I was went, man, what a compliment.
Yeah.
But and to me, that's the fun part. And you can't just plant corn and all that, but it's there's a lot to be said for that drilling. My biggest fear, and I had to overcome it during the drought, was like, this is just me personally. Because I had done so much work. I'd disc it, and then I'd till it, and I'd pull my thing over there, and you can see it. You can't see it coming out. And I'd stop every 20 feet and go, is it doing it or not? And finally my son-in-law, he said, "Pop, run the run and then open the lid.
Yeah.
Quit worrying about it. It's going out." And once I got over that, I'm like, yeah, that'll come up. So, but that's a big topic right now. And you're right. A lot of people that just are in a hunting club, maybe they're not worried about soil health or anything like that. But to me, it's like, man, if you got a work weekend, you know, everybody has a work day at their hunting camp. You can get it all done with one of them.
You bet.
I've noticed a little bit here in the past couple of years is a lot of these clubs will buy a drill,
Yeah.
and they just have the members, you know, everybody pays a little bit on it. It just belongs to the club. That makes it a lot easier to stomach, you know, than going out and spending a few $1,000s on one yourself.
Well, I mean, everything costs. If you got a tractor, and you know, people, first food plot I planted down there in Kemper County. We was talking about Kemper County a while ago. I didn't even have a tractor. I had a 225 Kawasaki 4-wheeler. And one of them little things that'll hook in the trailer hitch, you know, it's got 2 discs on it. Boy, if you hit something with that, it'll throw you right off there. I had one of them, and I had, it grew some grass. And then I had an old bed spring I'd tie behind there just to drag the. If you got enough want to, you'll figure out the how to.
Yep.
And it's like, and there's always going to be that guy like, oh, you got this and you got that. Well, my first tractor was a blue Ford 3-cylinder diesel. I don't remember the number on it. That would sometimes it would run and sometimes it wouldn't. But I had more fun on that old 3-cylinder diesel Ford tractor, and I bought me a disc that was about 3 foot wide. And man, I thought I was, you know, a bean farmer in the Delta.
Getting busy.
Yeah, I loved it. Nothing compares to that for me as far as the other day I had to go borrow an implement. It's about 7 miles, and he said, "Bring your trailer over." I said, "No, I'm gonna just ride the tractor over."
I seen that on Facebook. Speaking of,
Yeah, I just shoot a little video, and I was like, and it was right after turkey season. I said that charged my battery more than anything.
Yeah.
That was my midlife crisis. Was a tractor. The first one was a little 3-cylinder. Bought it off Craigslist.
Yeah.
And learned how to work on it and all that kind of stuff. And my grandsons, they love that. And I did, this was the coolest thing ever, 2 things. Because when you start doing that, it's, I ain't gonna say it becomes a lifestyle, but it kind of does. But my grandsons, they weren't, and I got a nice John Deere now. It's not new. It's a 50-35, something like that. Last year they had them without diff. And, but anyway, my grandsons they weren't really, I didn't let them up in that one much. But anyway, I was looking, and this was some more divine intervention. I always looking at tractors and stuff, and I was on not Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace maybe. And there was a 1954, which is the year I was born, Ferguson, for sale about 100 miles from my house. And I was like, that tractor was the same year. And this guy had a little video and was cranked. And I went and got a trailer and went up there and bought it. Brought it back, and all of them. I mean, I put one thing I had to get some help with, had one busted gear, and I got a Mennonite mechanic down there. It's the greatest ever. But we put tires on it. We put it's not a carburetor, fuel bowl. We put a generator, moved it over to 12. And now they'll take it and ride in a parade down there in Houston, Mississippi. It was the family project. And the only reason I bought it is because it was made the same year I was. And it ain't big enough to go, you know, it ain't gonna pull no drill or nothing, but it's like everybody worked on that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's parked in its own little place, and everybody goes out there, and we'll crank it once every week. And I do have a little cultivator with it that he can pull in between the corn rows, and they did that last year to keep him having to spray it again. But it's like, what a cool lifestyle. And all that started with me with a food plot.
Yeah.
You know, but it kind of gets in your blood. But I do enjoy trying to figure out the drilling. You know, I listen to Grant Woods a lot. And he's the crimp guy and does all that, and he's building his own soil. But that's at a whole nother level. But when you start talking about, you know, the soil compaction and the earthworms and all, I can see just on my little place in 5 years I hadn't been disking it, how much better the soil is.
Healthier.
Yeah.
Sure.
it absorbs moisture better, in my opinion. You know, it grew. I didn't plant anything last year. I just ran out of time. But it's like I just leave it alone for a year. And but it's fun to try to figure all that out. And it's not as complicated as it seems now. The first time I looked at one of y'all's drills, I'm like, Lord have mercy, I'd never figure out how to do it. And then I talked to Greg Briggs, who was using one, and he don't have any more education than me. He's just really good farming. He said, "Cuz I figured that thing out in like 10 minutes." And he said, "We did this here, and then we did this over here, and they swapping, and he planted a blend and all that." So it's kind of hard to mess it up. It's like you said, hunting camps. If you're serious about it and you ain't got much time, go in as a group. I had a guy tell me I do all this trapping stuff all the time, and this guy, he was texting me back and forth, and he said these people don't have much time and all that. And I said, do this. I said, go buy 24 of them DPs, them dog-proof traps. Just buy them yourself and take them down there and have one day where you show everybody how to do it. And assign John's on Monday, Frank's on Tuesday. And man, they're just trapping. They all think they're Jeremiah Johnson.
They're great hunter already.
Yeah, they couldn't do it every day, but they could do it once a week.
That's right.
And now, I mean, that's their program. That's the same kind of hunting club that would buy a drill and figure it out.
Right.
What we need to educate people more on is getting ready to drill. You can't just go out there and, a field that's got Johnson grass 10 feet high and drill into it.
What is it, the 5 Ps, the proper preparation prevents?
Piss poor performance.
Piss poor performance. That's what it is.
That's right. I mean, it's a little common sense, but I was, like I say, I learned in a have-to situation how good it is. I think you need a good drill, and I don't know that much about the openers or the closers. Like I say, I follow a bunch of farmers, and of course, they got opening wheels, they adjust, and then closing wheels, they adjust, and they're side dressing the corn and I was like, I didn't do any of that. And I grew some of the most beautiful corn.
It rivaled the your neighbor, didn't it?
It did. Yeah. That was the funniest thing. He had it sitting out there. He said, them threes from my field down in the bottom and them threes from yours. And I didn't side dress any nitrogen or nothing. I spread some, but it was like got good rains and kept the weeds out and all that kind of stuff. And
Healthy soil.
I just enjoy that now way more than I do climbing 20 feet, sitting in a lock on with a bow and arrow. Not that I don't like it, but it's like I spend way more time prepping and getting ready and thinking about, what I'm gonna plant and where and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good field to be in. And it's getting more and more popular. I guarantee you I'll make a post about this and I'll get 50 comments about either where can I listen to that or what do I do to get mine ready, or there's a really good guy on YouTube. He made a good YouTube video. It's been 2 or 3 years ago. He just went down to the county soil thing and they had a drill. Mm-hmm. Now, it was a big one. I don't even know if I could have pulled that thing, but he got it down to his and he planted some corn and he planted something else and he borrowed it from the county office. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that's an option in a lot of places.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Most counties have either a 7 or a 10-foot drill, which is too big for a lot of people, but a lot of people it's not. And you can get them cheap. I think Lanny did that this year.
Yeah.
It's definitely an option if you got something to pull it with.
Well, I know Great Plains is a big name. I mean, my grandsons were like, somebody from there? Because they play Farming Simulator now. Like, they're on Farming Simulator. There's some stuff on there I'm like, that's big time.
Big time.
Yeah.
That's when you make it on there, that's big time. Yeah. So the fact that y'all are, looking at smaller operations, because that's encouraging. Because, I think the deer hunting stuff's just going to continue, and everybody's wanting to grow clover for turkeys and all that. So I think it's just going to get more and more popular.
Yeah,
myself, because especially the younger people younger than me anyway, they're way more concerned about the environment than I was when I was two.
Sure.
I was like anything I could do to turn it, I was going to turn it. That's fun. I love smelling that dirt. Well, they ain't so much about that. So,
Right.
and that's good.
Yes.
I think they'll be more about no tilling than anybody. I know my grandsons are like that. They'll ask you, you gonna till your food plot this year? No, good. So, it just takes a little education. But let me tell you something. If I can get it done, anybody can get it done.
Heard that. Same.
Yeah, same here. Well, let's end it on a fun note. Let's talk about some of the favorite places and people you've hunted with.
Yeah, you have that conversation. You kind of got to take your family out.
Yeah,
'Cause, I had all girls, and and then I have these grandsons, and I spent most of my spring this year with them grandsons. I'm trying to get everybody a grand slam, and Cranky, the youngest one, he's 14 now. He's big as you, but he grew up on people watching him. And I took him out there last year to get his Miriam, and the place where we went had Miriams and Rios. And first one that walked out was a big old Rio. Boom! I was like, dude, I brought you out here to shoot a Miriam to finish. Pop, I came here to kill a turkey. I was like, all right.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I've been with so many just unbelievable people. But my favorite hunts are always going to kind of lean back to those wounded vets. We open up our season, I do every year in South Florida, and Mossy, Florida Cattlemen's Association, they got some spots down there, and they'll let these wounded vets come in, and that's the only people get to hunt it, so they're good places.
yeah,
And but I have met what you get down there. First off, is I'd say I don't know how many I've taken over 16 years, a bunch, 50 or 100 or more. Very seldom anybody in that group is a hunter, and almost never a turkey hunter. So I would rather go with somebody who's asking questions and wants to learn. And if they are a wounded vet, where their heart's at and where their head's at and all that kind of stuff. And if you can make them forget about whatever issue they're having for just a little while, it's those are just special. I've had so many of those down there. I had one this year, and the second hunt, we have two hunts. There's usually 5 people on a hunt, and they'll hunt for 3 days, and then 5 more come in. And the second hunt I had was a Navy guy, black guy, African American. He was 62 or 3, paralyzed on his right side. And I didn't ask him why. I never do. It doesn't matter to me. And anyway, he pulled up, and he's got his son with him. And his son was probably 18, driving. And black kid, long corn rolls, earrings. And I was like, it's going to be a culture shock for him and me both. That kid was the coolest kid I've ever been around. Me and him had more fun. I was like, and he's like, yes, sir, I can do this. Yes, sir, I can do that. And I said, can your dad walk 100 yards? Because I'm lining out. I'm saving this. He said, I can carry him 100 yards.
oh man,
We had the best time, and we got through, and I was sitting there talking to this young boy and his dad, about his dad. And he said, I got 4 brothers. I said, it's 5 of y'all? He said, that's right. I said, are they all as polite and well-mannered as you? And he looked at me and said, you bet. It's all about how you raise, but they had never killed. And when that guy shot that turkey, I thought that kid was just going to go crazy. It's like, that right there means more than any kind of post. And I post about it because people want to keep up with them. But I've met so many super people down there. Some of them are really quiet. I had a kid last year before last, he didn't talk much. And his deal was kind of PTSD. He'd been deployed like 7 times. He just wasn't a talker. And the guy that puts this hunt on, he handpicks these people. This ain't a Wounded Warriors organization. These are handpicked guys who need some R&R. And for the first day or so, he didn't say much, and then I'm pretty easy to hunt with. We talk about this, turkey hunting and all that. And by the 3rd day, he was asking me about, raising kids and all that kind of stuff. And just to see that that move he made from sitting here like this to asking me questions, that's cool, you know. And it all happened turkey hunting. And man, I'll tell you one more. There was this guy down there, and his last name was Bird. I don't remember his first name. He's a black guy. He's like 6'7". This dude looked like a defensive. He could have been a defensive end in an NFL. When he showed up to camp, I thought he was sent by the guy putting the hunt on to help us, because we didn't have it that ranch thing we stayed. We didn't have a wheelchair ramp at the time. We do now, and he guys pick him up in a wheelchair and put him up on the porch. Well, he was one of the wounded vets. He had a prosthetic from just above the knee down. You would have never known it, and never been hunting. I took him that first morning, and he's sitting by me, and I was filming this one. And anyway, long story short, turkey comes in, and boom, he shoots it, and he got the biggest threat. And he's sitting down. I said, "Let me go get your turkey." And I turned the big camera off. I had my GoPro still on him. I said, "Let me go get that turkey and drag it up here," because he was just so excited, and it was hard for him to get up. Anyway, I got home and I looked at the video from the GoPro, which I left running, and I get up and leave, and he's looking around. He picks that hole up he had just shot and sniffs it and puts it in his pockets. I'm going to keep that. And I was like, how cool was that? Just a little thing.
In the moment.
But it's like, you know, we take it for granted. Just like going and sitting on a food plot or going on a turkey hunt. Because we get to do it a lot. But for some people, that's a big deal. Life-changing event.
Yes.
You know, and for me, that's what I look for. And I've been with plenty of pro athletes. We went with the Supreme Court justice. I mean, there's plenty of people I could talk about, but to me, it always goes back to them than people who were like, "Holy cow, that was special," you know. So, and it's been fun for me doing that. What a blessing!
Yeah,
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, what a blessing for them. You doing it for them. That's amazing. I can't thank you enough for joining us today and talking with us and spending some time, and just really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thank you. As soon as they turn them cameras off, I'm gonna get my notebook out. I'm about to wear y'all out.
Get to scribbling.
Yeah, we're gonna go real deep on the no-till stuff. So
Awesome.
thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Anytime.
Likewise.
Thank you.